Welcome to Two Gay Tuesdays on QueerPublicRadio.com. On Two Gay Tuesdays, we will discuss news and events happening in our world. Much of it will be related to our lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, questioning, intersex, and allied communities. Our goal is to inform, enlighten, and have some fun along the way. Join Kali and Tom and occasional guests as we explore our world in hopes of making it a better place. Most of our content will show a great need for more understanding and love involving the treatment of our fellow human family members. All human family members. On with the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Two Gay Tuesdays show on November 13th, 2012. It is currently 7:04 p.m. Central Time, 8:04 p.m. Eastern Time. And what time is it over there in Hawaii, Kali?
3:04 p.m. Hawaii time.
Hawaii.
Aloha, you're all.
Oh, we got a special guest with us today. You know, folks, in my life, I've witnessed several examples of what I would personally call near-death conversions. On the low end of the spectrum, I've seen elderly people who feel they are near death and suddenly change their lives and start caring more about others, or at least change the way they treat others. In some cases, I think it's sort of like an insurance policy in their minds, you know, just in case there is a quote-unquote judgment day. On the high end of that same spectrum, I've seen people with terminal illness suddenly change their lives by being more truthful and caring more about others. Of course, the reasoning is similar to the reasoning used by the elderly in the previous example. I find it odd that so many care so little about others for the majority of their lives and think they can correct that in a short period when they're near the end. But the bigger message we should all take away from these real-life examples, in my mind, is the simple fact that we should live a loving and helpful life, period. Kindness, caring, and love for our fellow human family members shouldn't be reserved for our quote-unquote end times. With that said, I'm so very honored to welcome Troy Roness to the show. Troy is a 25-year-old who suffered with an eating disorder and an exercise obsession that almost killed him. He's also a gay man who just came out this past February. Troy is also very outspoken, an activist, an upstanding member of many organizations trying to help others who are having similar struggles. Let's learn more about Troy and his story today. And without further ado, welcome to the show, Troy.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
How's everything going up there?
It's going very well. Actually, we just had a snowstorm a couple of days ago, and we're kind of digging our way out and trying to move on, but that's the way North Dakota is, and I think we love it up here. So,
wow, I think that's the first time I ever heard anybody that lives up in the northern country where they get snow say they don't mind it.
Yeah, it's not too bad. We actually had around 13, 14 inches of snow last year total, and I think we had 10 inches the other day, so we're just about at par from last year. We're looking good.
Okay, Troy, so basically we want everyone to know everything you never wanted anyone to know about you. So that's our goal today.
Basically, we want all the nitty-gritty, all the dirty, juicy details.
Well, I'm very boring, so I hope I can keep people interested. That's for sure.
So let's see, Troy. Were you born in North Dakota?
Yep, born and raised in North Dakota, and grew up in a small town of around 1,000 people, and now live in the capital city of Bismarck.
So were you a farm boy?
I wasn't a farm boy. I was considered a town boy. I lived in town, and there's a huge difference. So I have done a lot with farming, but I did not grow up on a farm myself.
Okay.
So what you're telling us is that you're a certified farm boy.
I guess so, if that's what you want to label it.
Oh boy! Well, as you can tell, Troy, we try to have a little fun on our shows here, so don't take anything we say too personally.
Well, I'm from North Dakota. I'm used to it. So.
Okay, so Troy, let's see now. You so now we know you're not a farm boy. There just went all my all my expectations right out the window. I'm just no, all kidding aside. Okay, so you were raised in a now I've read here and there about stuff that you went through, and I was kind of surprised that this whole eating disorder and all that kind of stuff didn't even start until you were 20 years old, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Most of the issues that I struggled with, anywhere from body image issues and anorexia and the addiction and struggle with exercise, I wouldn't say that I didn't struggle with them growing up. I would say they just really manifested themselves when I began college at 18 and 19.
Ah, okay. So they were still there previously, prior to that, I should say, but they weren't health affecting or life altering or serious.
Right. I think up until that point, I kept myself busy enough to either avoid it or ignore it, and this was my way, my body, and my mind's way of coping with things. And just like people with alcoholism or any other disease, they reach for the bottle, and my way of coping was to get on the treadmill or to use exercise as a way to not only self-punish myself, but to numb myself out and forget about everything else. And so it just kind of turned into a self-perpetuating cycle where all I thought about and all I was concerned with were my eating disorder and exercise for many years.
Now, when you say your exercise addiction, now does this? I read in your biography that you were heavily into sports. Were the sports a tool to help cope with some of this stuff as well, or was it just purely an exercise thing?
In high school, it's interesting because in high school, I never remember stepping on a scale, worried about what I weighed, or never thought about nutrition heavily when I was in high school. Sports were merely for enjoyment. That was the thing to do in small towns, and I did those. Every sport that was offered, and I had a lot of fun. And like I said, the exercise was out of trying to become healthy when I went to college, but it became something that I could control very much, and so that became my tool that really led to my downfall.
Because I know that some kids who are struggling with their sexuality or other issues use sports as sort of a professional front, or if you will. They think if they play sports that'll make them quote unquote more manly. Was that the case in your case?
That wasn't the case for me, but I have talked with many individuals over the years, and that is one thing that they do. It's something when it comes to, say, football or basketball, if their fathers did it, if someone in their family's done it, their brother or sister, it's really, as you said, the masculine thing to do, and I think participation in what everybody else does or what society expects you to do, that's a way to mask not only who you are, but the way you're really supposed to be acting, I guess, according to the way that you wish to. And I think that whether it comes down to body type or punch, we all want to be just like we want to be perfect. And so I think individuals that are LGBTQ or are really more sexuality, they may participate in organized sports or individual sports to really try and mask what they're feeling, and in the end, in my case and in many others in different situations, I think that can really be detrimental to their health and to those around them.
Yeah, that's
interesting.
Very interesting. I found it odd because you made the statement just a minute ago that that you were quote unquote previously busy, blah 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 blah, and that's why you didn't think that it had a huge effect on you until you reached the age of 20. But I'm thinking at the age of 20, you were in college, weren't you?
Yes, I was. I was in college, and I think eating disorders they stem from a multitude of different factors. A lot of people will go, well, what was it like growing up in their household? Was it their parents' fault? What was their environment? What did they watch on television? What was the media exposure? Are they biologically exposed to different genes? And it's actually all those that I mentioned above. And so when someone moves to college or someone has a traumatic experience in their life, so they lose a loved one, or they may be going to college, or they have a significant change, maybe with a job or an illness, that can be a trigger. Now, did that cause their eating disorder? Absolutely not. But it was something that say, that the straw that broke the camel's back, and that's what catapults people into their disorder. And for me, I think it was a combination of not only trying to hide my sexuality, but it was the move to college, being on my own, and in an environment that I wasn't ready to embrace. And so I think that's why I chose to mold the outside, or try and control the physical when I couldn't control the inside or what I was feeling in my sexuality.
Now, Troy, I know that there are many, many different types of eating disorders. Could you explain to our listeners exactly what disorders that you were having to deal with, in case some of them might be experiencing the same things?
Well, absolutely, and I'm glad you asked that question, because most individuals feel that you have to either be extremely thin or extremely overweight, or binging and purging all the time to be considered to have an eating disorder. And what most people don't realize is that a majority of the population, I would say, a significant portion anyway, really do struggle with disordered eating. And studies have shown over the years that disordered eating, when it comes to dieting off and on throughout your life, rituals around food, rituals around exercise, they do lead to eating disorders. And so to your first question, the different eating disorders can range from anorexia, bulimia, binge eating disorder, and then there's one called EDNOS, eating disorders not otherwise specified. And that is actually a combination of different aspects of the different types of eating disorders. So in my case, I had a combination of anorexia, extreme exercise, and then at one point I did struggle with bulimia for a number of months and was able to actually come out of that, so I was very fortunate. But when you have different symptoms and different behaviors of the many eating disorders out there, the combination is called eating disorders not otherwise specified, and that's what I struggled with.
Just from my personal ignorance, what's the difference between anorexia and bulimia?
Anorexia is self-induced starvation, when you don't take enough in to maintain a healthy body weight. And bulimia is when bulimia can be described in a number of ways. Bulimia is actually when you do purge the food after you eat it, whether that's through physically throwing up, or say burning off what you eat through exercise, or fasting, or laxatives and that sort of thing, and diuretics.
Ah, okay, all right. Because I was one of the people you mentioned when you first started talking about it there, that is like totally ignorant about it. I thought they were all kind of involved purging and all that.
Well, Tom, I really don't think you were that confused, Tom, because there's a lot of folks out there that really don't understand what bulimia is and what anorexia is. So I think this is a really good conversation to have, especially for young GLBTQ members, in our community, because I have a sneaking suspicion, and I'm sure, Tora, you can probably confirm this, that there are probably a great number of young adults, not only GLBT adults, but as well, other kinds of communities where they have these issues. Is that true?
Yes, that's very true, and I do apologize for not explaining the differences. I'm so used to talking about them, I'm kind of putting it out there that everybody either does or should know about it. So I'm glad you asked me to clarify what the differences are. And to answer the question about different minority groups or individuals that might be identified as LGBTQ, I would definitely say that, especially for gay men, most people, straight men and gay men alike, who are struggling with an eating disorder, the straight counterparts are less likely to come forward because it is seen as a gay man's issue. And that simply is not true. While research has shown that gay men typically do come forward, and the LGBTQ community does typically come forward more often when they are struggling with an eating disorder, they do not represent a higher proportion of the population. So we haven't figured out, and many psychologists and psychiatrists have not figured out, why the LGBTQ community does tend to reach out more often than their straight counterparts. But it's interesting that they are proportionally seen more in research because of that fact. And it was always thought to be, eating disorders in general were thought to be a young Caucasian girl's issue, when in fact many minority groups, as you mentioned, do struggle with this at higher numbers.
Now, are the struggles different for the different forms of the disorders? I mean, say, is bulimia more prevalent than, say, any of the others, or is it pretty equal?
I think it's fairly equal across the board. However, I do know specifically with men, I do know that binge eating disorder and bulimia are on the rise. Specifically, binge eating disorder is on the rise in the male population, and bulimia as well. So those are two things that I can confirm for sure that are more typical in one population or another. But as to the others, I would say that regardless of whatever you are struggling with, it's definitely an issue that needs to be dealt with.
Right, and because a lot of our listeners are women, what can you tell them about these different things?
Well, I mean, we only have 2 hours. I could talk for 5. But one of the things is that the media, especially, when we look at the television and we see advertisements for various weight loss things, we see models, we see advertisements on the internet all the time about what people should or shouldn't look like. And it's not up to the media to tell us what we should or shouldn't look like, because less than 5% of the individuals on television look like anybody else in the rest of the world. So we are constantly bombarded by messages that we have to be that we have to meet a certain standard. And whether it's men or women, we have to realize that you can't attain the unattainable, and the media projects that at us. And so there is no quote-unquote normal, a quote-unquote normal individual. You just have to try and be comfortable with who you are. And it's very much easier said than done, and it's taken me a long time to get there, but we can't strive to be something that we're not. We're born an original, and we don't want to die a copy, and that's exactly the message that LGBTQ individuals and men and women and their straight counterparts alike need to know.
Oh my goodness, I like that line. We're born an original, and we don't want to die a copy. Hold on a second. Hold on. I just got to throw something in here, a little sound clip. Oh, okay. Go.
That was great, but I did want to preface that that's not my personal quote. That is something I read or heard or saw somewhere. So the credit does not go to me.
Oh, well, we'll let you have it for this show anyway.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
But we'll preface it with an anonymous author said, but for this show's purposes, Troy said it.
Right.
So and your story is just fascinating. I must say that up front. Can you tell us about some of the things that may have triggered this? Was religion, for instance, a major influence in this, or was it some other issue?
Well, a lot of people, when I do say that I am Christian and I do, I have a tremendous faith that I do follow and I do lean on quite heavily. Most people look at me with a different look and they kind of question, okay, well, you happen to be gay and you can still be Christian, and did that trigger your eating disorder? And I would say it didn't trigger my eating disorder and it didn't cause my eating disorder. However, when I was growing up, I went to church. I was raised Lutheran. We went to church on Sundays. I went to Sunday school, did the whole 9 yards, but I didn't really come to accept my faith until later on in high school. And I would say that my faith played a role because I did convert and I'm now Baptist, but I would definitely say that it wasn't my faith itself. It was the interpretation that I had of my faith that really made things difficult. Of course, I had an extremely difficult time with my sexuality and trying to find common ground between my faith, which was and still is very important to me, and then my sexuality, which I found after years of counseling, both Christian and regular counseling, that I couldn't change, and it wasn't something that I was supposed to. And I would say that struggle, that inner struggle, as I mentioned before, trying to mold the outside for acceptance, because I couldn't change what was the inside, which is my sexuality, my personality, my quirks, my whatever you want to call it. I think that really did contribute in different ways, but I wouldn't say that was the cause of my eating disorder.
That's an excellent point, and we're kind of jumping the gun here because I really didn't want to get too much into this until after I played the sound clip that I have of you being on the Dr. Phil show. But because Dr. Phil asked you twice during that show, what was the trigger, what was what caused this, blah, blah. I think so many people live that they think the world, and I think you said this in one of the parts that I read on your Huffington Post page, something about the world's not black and white, and the point I'm trying to make here is there's not necessarily one cause to this. It could be a host of contributing factors, not just everyone just, okay, what is it? They want to pin you down up in the corner until you tell them, we want to know what thing caused this, and you see where I'm going with this?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, and we live in a society of black and white. We live in a society of instant gratification. We want to know why or how, and we want to know now. And when it comes to, say, black and white thinking, that's exactly the type of symptoms that do accompany an eating disorder. It's black or white. It's good or bad. When it comes to food, foods are good or foods are bad. When it comes to how much you exercise, one number is good, one number is bad. And the same with the scale, with your weight. The highest is always too high, but the lowest that you're always striving for is never low enough. And that black and white comparison, that's really where people have black and white thinking, I should say, is really where individuals start to get into trouble.
Yeah, I think so too, because I don't, it's kind of like, before I started reading all your stuff, the first thing I did is I went and listened to the Dr. Phil clip, and checked that out, and quite frankly, I think you kind of got robbed on that show. It's almost like you were an afterthought there. They give you 15 minutes or whatever in the end of the show. But anyway, but the results were awesome. You know, you got the help you needed, and it turned your life around, and that's all that counts. So, in my mind, but anyway, you know, he asked you twice. You know, and this is, you know, Dr. Phil. You know, a trained professional. You know, and I thought that was kind of narrow-minded of him to kind of, you know, what caused it. You know, was kind of a I just don't think that's a good question because I don't think there's one answer for that. You know, it's not like you can nail it down, you know, and just say, well, you know, my sexuality caused it, or, you know, my childhood, or whatever. I mean, you went to college what at 18?
Yes, I started college. I graduated at 17 and started college at 18. And by the time I was on his show, I had just graduated from college probably 6 months prior, and so I was in the middle of my first year of teaching. And I think it's a very good point that you bring up. There are a lot of things out there in the media where they want the shock and awe factor. They wanted to know what could we investigate that would make our viewers want to tune in more. And I'm sure there were other things that they were looking for. And at that time, and even after I was finished with not only the therapy that I received from the show, but the therapy that I received at home, I never talked about my sexuality because I was that ashamed for a while, but I was very afraid to, quote-unquote, give into it because that would mean that I was a failure. I had fought it for so long that by admitting it and coming to accept it, that wouldn't be a good thing. And so the message I guess I'm trying to get across is that I went to residential treatment facility twice, and both times I was there 81 days. And to me, I don't know why 81 days was the number that, you know, God gave me, but I think that's the number that He wants me to have, so I'll take it. But it was 6 months, nearly 6 months of residential treatment, and it wasn't as if I got out of treatment and was all better. I didn't come home and never had a thought again, never had a struggle again. I know that my friends and family well know that, and many other individuals who are out there well know that. And so to this day, I wouldn't say that I'm recovered with an ED, done and over with. I'd say I'm still in recovery. There are things that still come to play, still come to my mind, and it's about coping each and every day and moving forward even when the days aren't so good.
Well, two things here. First of all, with the media, for them it's all about ratings and how much money they can get. So I mean, it's a shame that the Dr. Phil show only gave you 15 minutes, and I'm thinking, that's like a travesty in my opinion. But on the other side of the coin is I have alcoholics in my family, and that they do the 12-step thing, and one of the things that they live by is that you have to take it one day at a time, and you are never cured, quote unquote cured. I hate to use that word because it just doesn't sound right, for this type of thing. Would you agree with that? I mean, this isn't something that you quote unquote can get a cure from.
Well, in my case, I'm not there yet. They, statistically speaking, they say that to recover from an eating disorder to where it doesn't severely impact your life anymore is from 8 to 10 years. And in my experience, I'm not there yet. Do I hope to be? Absolutely. I do know a handful, and less than 5 that can say that they are completely 100% recovered, to where they don't struggle with anything anymore. And if that is true, I wish them the best, and I look forward to the day that I can be there. But for the majority of people, it is something that does stay with them for the rest of their life. And that's not to say that it's gloom and doom when you have a diagnosis like this. It's something to say that you can really draw strength from, and I mean, you're fighting for your life, and your life is definitely worth fighting for.
You know, I think it's important to mention here that health that's your career, right? Health and wellness, basically. I mean, aren't you a physical education teacher or something like that, or?
Yes, my undergraduate degree was health and physical education, and my graduate degree is also in education, but it focuses on mind and brain research and cognitive science.
Oh, okay. Now, yeah, I was wondering what the heck cognitive science was. Now I get it. Okay.
Trust me, it sounds way more complicated than it is. It's not that fancy, I promise.
Okay, but it's just important to know that you're in that industry, into the health industry, and I mean even Dr. Phil mentioned it. You know, we've mentioned Dr. Phil here several times. It might be a good time to just play that clip for people and let them hear what happened on the Dr. Phil show. Maybe that'll shed some light, huh? So let me bring that up here. That is a 9-minute and 17-second clip. So everyone just sit back and relax for this 9 minutes and check this out. Here we go with here's Troy appearance on the Dr. Phil show. I do have to preface it with the fact that there was a 15-year-old and his parents were on there. He was having similar issues, and they're referenced a couple times in the clip here. So here we go.
Most men not only resist treatment for eating disorders, but they can also go undiagnosed for doctors when they do see them who aren't used to seeing male patients with these issues. And we're talking about boys so body obsessed that they're putting their own lives at risk. 22-year-old Troy has not been diagnosed with a specific eating disorder, but he says his weight, exercise time, and calorie counting has taken over his life. He's 5'11". Troy once weighed in at a healthy 185. Today, he's a mere 138.
I have an eating disorder. There are times when I eat very, very little. There's times when I eat normally, and then I fast. I exercise way too much.
I'm embarrassed because it's generally a female problem. In the last 2 or 3 years, I've lost approximately 40 or 45 pounds. Usually when I see pictures, I can tell definitely up in here and through my face that I've lost a lot of weight. If I have my shirt off, I can see a lot of the bones in my back, and I know that that's way, way, way too thin. It started out really innocent, just changing certain habits to get healthy, and it's just gotten out of control. My push-ups and my leg raises and my run every day, that is what makes up my workout, and I do that every day, sometimes twice a day. I'm a health teacher, and it's hard because I know that I'm not practicing what I preach.
I typically eat 1 to 2 meals a day, if that, and even those meals are getting smaller and smaller. I'm constantly cold. I walk around my home in a sweatshirt, a couple of shirts on, a couple pairs of sweatpants.
I am scared for my life sometimes. My family is very worried about losing me.
Okay. You're a gym teacher. You teach physical education and everything that goes along with it.
That's right.
But you don't practice what you preach.
And not anymore.
Not anymore. What happened? How did you, as you were saying, you were weighing in at 185, very healthy, very muscular, very vibrant looking. Right. What flipped the switch for you?
I can't necessarily pick out a specific trigger, but like I said, it started out very innocent, making small changes just to become a healthier individual, and in that time it's just gotten out of control.
Well, you've been sitting in the front row here listening to us talk with Eric. What do you hear?
It's like listening to my own story replayed back to me. It's just a big eye-opener to know that someone so young is, going through the exact same thing I am.
And how old are you?
I'm 22.
You're 22. So 7 years later, you can be in exactly the place you're in now. If you get that, if you don't deal with this.
Yeah, I understand.
And this dominates your life at this point.
That's correct. Going through 4 years of, secondary education, learning about every health aspect that I need to teach, it's very hard. I know in my heart what's right and what's wrong, but my mind plays a totally different game.
The day after Thanksgiving, my meal consisted of fruits, vegetables, half of a bun, 1 or 2 mini slices of turkey, and a bite of stuffing. I way overate last night, and now the guilt and anxiety this morning is very high. I'm really thinking about the salt content that I ate yesterday. It's probably going to force me just to not eat hardly anything. If I do, it'll be a very minuscule amount.
Well, the stigma attached to eating disorders is profound at best for women, but it's even more so for men because it's basically seen as a women's issue. Now, that causes men to be more reluctant to go seek help, and they wait later into the game before they do, which is another negative effect. Now, Troy says he's not only embarrassed about his potential eating disorder, as a phys ed teacher, he also fails to follow the health and fitness advice that he so effectively gives to his own students. And the truth is, you are a really good teacher. I mean, everything we can learn, you're really good, you're respected by your students, but you know you're not doing what you say.
That's right.
You sat there the whole time listening to us talk to Eric. You'd agree with me, he is a very brave and intelligent young man, true?
That's very true.
Save him 7 years. What would you say to him that you wish somebody had said to you a long time ago? Use your life right now. Look him in the eye and talk to him.
I would definitely say that you should take every opportunity to get this problem under control, and it's a tough road ahead, but I would seek out every opportunity you can to make it better.
Do you hear that hitting your ears as well?
At the same time, yeah, it's just tough.
Dr. Weltsing, what's the difference between 15 and 22 here in terms of the approaches?
Well, I think the main difference between Eric and Troy in terms of where they're at in their life is recognizing for Troy just how lonely in existence this eating disorder is, and really trying to use that as motivation for making the changes that are going to be really difficult to make.
What are you missing?
I miss the time and, I guess, the energy that I put into family and friends. They definitely take a back seat to my obsession, and I really, really, really want that to change, get my life back.
Because it gets pretty alone.
Yeah, my life is completely different now. I used to be so outgoing and one of those guys that you could find in the crowd, the fun-loving guy that, just enjoyed life, and I'm not that way anymore, and I don't like who I am.
And you have no insight, no sense as to how this spun out of control.
I honestly, it started out innocent, just making a few changes, and I honestly feel it's just a way to control everything. And for whatever reason, I feel like I'm out of control. That's why I'm doing it.
Well, you heard the things that I had to say about Rogers Memorial Eating Disorder Center.
Correct.
These guys specialize in this, and they know what they're doing. And they have made the same offer with regard to you that they have made with regard to Eric. How do you feel about that?
It's wonderful.
Is that something you're willing to grab onto and do whatever it takes?
Yes.
Because you have to understand, and Becky, Ken, there's a point at which it's beyond what mom and dad can do. I mean, Doc, would you agree with it? It gets to a point where it takes another level of expertise and professionalism to deal with it.
This is a very difficult illness, but it's one that can be treated.
Yeah. But it takes professionals to do it. You're in over your head, Mom. You can't take this much longer. It's driving you crazy. And you've got to have some skill sets that you just don't have. You're in over your head in handling this. You know you are. And this is going to get worse before it gets better if you don't do something about it.
That's my biggest fear.
Are you willing to accept the help that's being offered? It's not easy. I'd really like to thank Dr. Ted Weltzine from the Rogers Memorial Hospital Eating Disorder Center for being here today. This is something that does turn around. I mean, that's the message I want people to understand. This does get better with help, right?
Absolutely, and I think you have to see, I mean, people with an eating disorder have not experienced recovery. The professionals working with them know what it takes. It's a long, hard road, but it does happen. And
it's doable.
It's very doable.
And you didn't hear me say to either one of you guys that this is easy, just that it's doable. With hard work and a willingness to be open, then this is doable. So we're going to track this, and I want to see a lot more of both of you when you come back here, okay? All right. I really want to thank Eric, Becky, and Ken, and Troy for having the courage to come and share their personal stories, and we'll keep you updated on them. And thanks to everyone at Rogers Memorial Hospital Eating Disorder Center. They're in Wisconsin, and thanks so much for agreeing to help these two really fine young men. Appreciate y'all being here today so much.
Well, they say hindsight is 20/20. Troy, what kind of comments you got after hearing that again after so many years?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting to hear where my mind was at in that I guess at that specific point in my life, and I would really like to hit on a couple of things. I was taking notes while I was listening, and the first mistake I think that was made on the show was that they were talking about my height and weight, and I absolutely lied my tail off to the producers about where I was at, for one thing, and seeing where I was at, many people who are ill would sometimes compare themselves. I'm not as sick as so-and-so, or I'm not as low of a weight as he is, so I'm not there yet. And after I did go home from the Dr. Phil show, I didn't turn things around right away. I waited quite some time before I went for help. I went back to doing exactly what I was doing before because I thought I was fine. And when he told me to turn to Eric and give him advice at what he should be doing, I didn't know what I was doing, and I wasn't in the state to be giving any advice to someone else who was struggling with an eating disorder. And at the end of the segment, you hear him say, well, I want to see a whole lot more of both of you when you come back. And that, to me, looking back, was not probably the best thing he should have said, because those that struggle with an eating disorder, they can be underweight, average weight, or overweight. And so to say that I want to see a whole lot more of both of you really puts the emphasis on food. And food and the various behaviors around eating disorders, whether it's binging and purging, or starving yourself, or exercising, or whatever it may be, the emphasis isn't on those specific issues. It's on emotional trauma, emotional hurt, and genetics, and it's issues that need to be addressed that have nothing to do with food that he definitely pointed out.
Awesome. Okay. Cool. Glad to hear that. Yeah, because I think, I know the audience got a giggle out of that, I mean, and I was thinking, yeah, that kind of left an odd taste. Hey, Troy, got a guest in the chat room that has a question for you here. I thought we better get to this because I'm old. I might forget here, so I better throw this out here. And I'll just read it exactly out of the chat room. It says, hey, Troy, in terms of treatment, how has your spirituality played into the healing of your body/psyche? If so, what advice can you offer listeners about using their spirituality to help themselves? Did you find the treatment you received in your residential treatment supportive of using a spiritual approach? Best wishes.
That's a fantastic question, and one that I'm very happy to answer. As I mentioned earlier, my spirituality really was detrimental to me in the beginning. I interpreted my faith very differently. I set it almost as I set myself to a very high standard. I wanted to be perfect. I wanted to get the good grades, be the best athlete, be the best coach and teacher, and the same thing came with my spirituality and my faith. I had to be perfect for God, because if I wasn't perfect for God, then whom could I be good enough for? And so that was really detrimental, and it really, as I said earlier, began my downfall. And what I have found is that no one is perfect here where we are, and no one can be perfect for Him, whether you share a sense of faith or spirituality or wherever you come from. I think we can all relate that no one is going to be perfect. And so for me, I really had to translate and change my view of my spirituality into the fact that I'm never going to be good enough for, in terms of what I think is good enough. I'm made exactly how I'm supposed to be made, and the one thing that I can do is follow what I think is what I think I'm supposed to be following to the best of my ability, and to continue with my faith and use it as a support structure, not a crutch, and then of course lean on my friends who share the same values. And so the facility that I did go to was very supportive in offering spiritual resources for a variety of faiths, and those that do not have a faith system to lean on. So I think that for me personally, it was a great tool that I used to begin my recovery, and then of course to stay in recovery, along with therapy and other avenues as well. So the facility, Rogers Memorial Hospital, was great in implementing that for me, and I would say someone that's struggling, it's a little bit difficult because I don't know what spirituality they do have or what faith they share, but I think the core emphasis is on being good enough or being perfect, and we're far from that, and I don't think that's expected of us.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, because there is that thing, and now I'm not Christian myself, but I am a spiritualist. But anyway, it's that whole, the body is the temple, kind of thing, maybe can
Absolutely.
be, yeah, take it a bit too far.
Yeah, absolutely. We're only one of us for all time, and this is all we have, and we have to cherish and we have to take care of the, I guess, whatever you want to call it, what we're given. Our body's what we're given, and so we have one chance. And I never thought that what I had was serious. I never thought that I was sick enough. I never thought that I had an eating disorder that could kill me. And through organ failure and a heart attack, I realized that I'm very human. I'm very life doesn't last forever, and so I realized the consequences that come with not loving yourself. And that's one of the takeaways that I hope people realize, is that these are very deadly illnesses, and there's something that definitely needs to be addressed.
So, at the time you were on the Dr. Phil show, that he stated that you were not diagnosed. When I read on your Huffington Post stuff, you said you were actually misdiagnosed a few times. Can you give us the timeline on some of that? When did you have this heart attack? When were you misdiagnosed? When did this all come into play, these things?
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. I was actually, I think I was 21 years old, about to turn 22, and I was staying with some family, and this was towards the end of college. And my family started to become very concerned, obviously, because physically I was changing. I was losing a significant amount of weight. But the bigger thing I think that my family did notice is that I wasn't Troy anymore. I, at one point, was very outgoing, very interactive with my family, loved to do everything, loved to go everywhere, and I became this very isolated, withdrawn, and emotionally numb individual. I wasn't myself anymore. And through my grandfather actually telling my parents, hey, something is wrong with this kid, we need to do something about this, they convinced me to go to the doctor. And now most individuals don't enjoy going to the doctor at any point in their lives, and especially with their parents. I don't care what age you are. And I actually went to the doctor with my mother at 21 or 22 years old. And so I was sitting in the doctor's office. This was an internal specialist, and they did blood work. She did physical exams. She did everything that I think a typical checkup it requires. And she came in and she said, look, your blood work is fine. A few levels are a little bit high, a little bit low, but nothing to worry about. You just need a little more fat in your diet, and you'll be fine. And because she knew that I was a runner, I was, very honest about that. I said, yes, I do run, but I was very secretive about my eating habits and didn't think that I had an eating disorder. I just thought I exercised too much. And so she said, hey, things are great. You run too much, you eat too little. Let's change that around, and you'll be fine. Well, Mom wasn't very happy about that, and neither was the rest of my family. And so I took the advice again and went several more times to another internal specialist and then a general practitioner. And most doctors, whether they're specialists or not, don't tend to look for eating disorders specifically in males because exercise is deemed normal for males, whereas if you see a female exercising for extreme amounts of time, it might raise a red flag. Whereas for guys, it's the accepted thing. I think it was mentioned earlier, the masculine thing to do, the accepted, what we're, I guess, told to do by our friends and colleagues and fellow athletes and whatnot. And so after the Dr. Phil show, when I did come home, to be medically cleared to fly, I had to have a variety of tests done to fly to treatment. And so when I came home, I did have tests done and found out that I had actually suffered a heart attack, and more than likely it happened while I was sleeping because I don't remember it. I don't remember experiencing any pain or the symptoms or anything, but they did say it was probably induced by the, of course, lack of nutrition, my body feeding off of its own muscle mass, and then the extreme exercise.
Wow.
Troy, we have another question from one of our other listeners in the chat room, and I'll just read it from the chat room. It says, Troy, besides spiritually, what other types of support did you seek during your recovery? Is there specific people or sources that you used during this tough time?
Another great question. I would say that for each individual recovery is different, and you can't put a definition on recovery because for some people recovery means getting out of bed in the morning, and for other people recovery means I haven't struggled with a behavior in 6 months. And so when the question is, are there specific people or resources that I used during my recovery for our tough time, I would just have to generally say use the individuals that you trust most, whether it's a parent, a teacher, a coach, a best friend, a doctor, your next door neighbor, whomever it is, to talk about something or to ask their opinion. And if you know of someone that may or may not be struggling, please don't tiptoe around the subject. Be very direct and very assertive and explain your concern. Other supportive services that I did, I learned in recovery that to use your voice, and I never realized what that exactly meant. They told me to use a journal to write down my thoughts and what was going on in my head. I thought they were completely insane and told several people that they were crazy and didn't want to do that. However, when I came home, when I'd have a really bad day, it just felt so much better to either have something on paper or to just have it out of my head and down to where I could come back later and look at it again. I came home to a set treatment team. I had a dietitian, I had a therapist, a psychologist, and then, of course, my family and my friends, and a meal plan as well. And so I used that for the amount of time that was needed for me, and I can't give out recommendations or anything like that for how long someone else should be using it, but I used it to the point to where I could differentiate good decisions versus, not so good decisions in terms of giving into behaviors or staying on the course for recovery, which is very difficult. But I think, just to answer that question generally, what resources are out there other than spirituality? The list is unlimited. Of course, you want to follow up with your treatment team, whatever it may be, but use the people that give you the most positive support and try to eliminate the contributors to your illness or the stressors in your life that may, in fact, be contributing to the behaviors and your eating disorder overall.
And what do you say to those that aren't fortunate enough to have a quote-unquote treatment team? Because not everyone, is at the point in their lives where they can, well, first of all, afford a treatment team, and secondly, want to discuss these issues with a whole bunch of people. What do you say to those people?
I thank you very much for that comment. I actually stopped going to my outpatient treatment team because of the cost. I do understand that. I didn't come from a super wealthy family and had everything given to me when it came to treatment. I had an insurance company and did the whole 9 yards until I limited who I was going to and that sort of thing, but what was best for me in my recovery. So for those individuals that can't, find a support group. One in your community. I know one was mentioned, a 12-step maybe support group, or going to a church group, or finding a group of individuals that are in recovery or have experience with family members and friends to talk to you. I would also suggest using online organizations, some that I've been affiliated with, that have individuals that have been there in your shoes, who are now in a very healthy state, that offer free advice and mentoring to individuals that may be going through the same thing.
Yeah.
And I will preface that. I guess I will add something to that at the end, that with these online organizations and maybe your support group, you don't have to go and say your name. You don't have to go and tell a bunch of people. You can submit questions and your struggles and what you're going through anonymously and still receive feedback, and that's very, very important. At least you're using your voice and you're being heard, and that's one of the biggest things in recovery.
Yeah, there's a reason Troy's with us, and I'm probably going to butcher most of this stuff, but I'm going to read off here the memberships and whatnot here. He's the inaugural United States Male Junior Board Representative for the National Eating Disorders Association, or the NEDA. He's also the Male Advisory Board member for the Global Eating Disorders Organization, and a member of Mentor Connect. Mentor Connect. Is that Mentor? Yeah. And a project director for Normal, NORMAL, in schools, and a former advisory board member for the National Association of Males with Eating Disorders, or named NAMED. He was also nominated for the 2012 SAMHSA Voice Award. And you can actually, I went to that link they had there, but I didn't see your name on there. I guess I didn't dig enough. I wanted instant gratification. I wanted you on the front page.
Well, I will say that it's wonderful to be associated with these organizations because they do great work. And I've said it once, and I'll say it 100 times over. It's never been about me or what I've done in my story. It's really saying, hey, I've come this far, and I'm not going to allow, as much as if possible, not allow someone else to go through what I have, or someone that I know has gone through. And that's the whole point, and that's the message that I want to get across specifically.
Yeah, there's a very famous quote from a very famous person, and I don't have it in front of me, or the very famous person's name, but it's something like you haven't lived life until you've given without any expectation of anything in return. And I think there's a lot to be said. That's why I gave the intro that I did. That I thought it was so sad that so many people, because they know all their lives what the right thing is to do, and they wait until they're knocking on death's door, to do it. And
right, and I would say that quote. I apologize to interrupt you, but that quote you said you don't know who it is and who it's from. For this show, I guess it's yours.
Wow, good for you.
Oh my goodness, my head just got so big.
He turned it right back on you, Tom.
I'm not going to be able to get through the door now. My head's so big. Anyway, Troy, it's we take a halftime break. It is halftime. This gives us all a chance to wet our whistle or take a break. And what we're going to do here, and we'll give out the phone numbers again in case anyone wants to call in. And we're going to play a couple pieces of music here. So it's basically break time, or halftime we usually call it. And I got two pieces of music I'm going to play during this break time. And one is very near and dear to my heart because many years ago, I'm guessing about 5 years ago, this group from Europe, I want to say they're from Scotland, called the Corrigans. It's a family of musicians, and they wrote this song and performed it, and it's a song called Hope. And back then, I was going by the name Gay Talk Radio. Now we've transcended into Queer Public Radio. But they emailed me, sent me a copy of the song, and said, please play this on your radio station. It's an awesome song, and this is going to be the first of our two songs we're going to share during this halftime break. Here's the song called Hope by the family of musicians from over in Europe called the Corrigans.
Every woman, every man and child tell a story, it is in their eyes. It keeps them going, that's how they cope. You got nothing if you ain't got hope. Like the new leaves on the trees, like the warm, soft summer breeze. When the darker winter's gone, hope and faith will keep you strong. Hope is light, hope is a song. Hope is love that lets us go on. Hope is light, hope is a song. Hope is love that lets us go on. When a child laughs and smiles, when you're tired but go on for miles, when you're broken on the roads, just carry on with the joy of hope. Hope is light, hope is a song. Hope is love that lets us go on. Hope is light, hope is a song. Hope is love that lets us go on. Every man and child tell a story, it is in their eyes. It keeps them going, that's how they cope. You've got nothing if you ain't got hope. You've got nothing if you ain't got hope.
And that was the Corrigans. And for our next song, we're going to have Kali introduce it because it's from a person from this Hawaii area.
Yes, this this next song is a piece that has been done many, many times by many, many artists, but this particular piece was done by a wonderful Hawaiian musician by the name of Brother Is. And for those of you who might not know who he is a very well-respected Hawaiian musician who's actually had his music done on many, many movies over the course of many years. And the song is called Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And this piece always kind of brings a little tear to my eye. So please enjoy this. That was Brother Is with Somewhere Over the Rainbow here on Queer Public Radio.
Awesome. Well, Troy, I hope those songs were a little inspirational for you.
Yeah, they seem perfectly fitting for the discussion. So appreciate the songs from both of you, and I thought they were very well fitted for this talk.
Yeah, we spent 30 minutes or so trying to figure out what songs we're going to play for this show.
Well, because we wanted something that would be calming and inspirational and full of peace and joy and hope. And anytime I ever hear Brother Is sing anything, I have to tell you, he definitely is bigger than life, not only physically but certainly emotionally as well. And we certainly out here in Hawaii mourn his loss to this day, and one day we'll all be there with him. So I hope you enjoyed the pieces of music.
Yes, thank you. I did. I hope everybody else out there did as well. So.
I hope so too. You know, I got a couple little tidbits here I want to throw out there for consumption that Troy said to me in the email when he initially contacted me, and it was a rather lengthy email, so I'm just going to say just a little bit of it here. Some of it jumped out at me. He says, my personal struggle, he says, has been a difficult journey worth taking. He says, I've come to believe that there is something powerful about saying, I finally shared my secret. He continues, I realized it was no longer mine to keep. It had now involved and affected everyone close to me. When my exercise and eating habits had taken over every aspect of my life, it didn't end my life to share my insecurities and shame. It began my quote-unquote journey back. I would encourage everyone to discover what it truly means to feel good again, just as you are. He said, finally, I'll say, one thing I find that has significantly contributed to my illness is the fact that I struggled with my sexuality, conservative values, and faith.
When I read that, it kind of brought a little tear to my eye, Troy, and I hope that everyone out there took the time to listen to that piece. Or to read it, I should say.
and
well, go ahead.
Troy, just yeah, because I know there's not a whole lot you can respond to on that, but one other section that you said that when you referenced the movie Prayers for Bobby, only you said that you're the mother and son in one. Now, you can expand on that, I'm sure.
Yes, and I say that the characters that were played in Prayers for Bobby by Sigourney Weaver and then the young gentleman was trying to be who he was. He was faced with obstacles anywhere from trying to be the perfect son for his mother and also trying to find common ground with his faith. And now, most people who have seen that movie look at the mother as an evil character, as someone who is trying to change her son to be what she wants him to be. And my take on that is not necessarily that she is trying to change him necessarily and hurt him and degrade her son, but she is loving her son in the only way that she knows how, and that is through the strict, literal sense that she does take with her faith. And so I find it very easy to be both of those characters because I embrace my faith. I love my faith. I try to do what is right, and so my sexuality, whether it's interpretation through somebody else or scripture or whatever it may be, became very, very muddled for a long time, and it was an internal struggle, as I said before, and it's very easy to try and love yourself, but at the same time find something that's just not compatible, and really struggle to find solace in where you're going and who you are. And for me, I've finally gotten to a point to where I'm not only comfortable, but I'm really enjoying who God has made me to be. And I'm trying to explain that when it comes to conservative values or Christian values or whatever faith it may be, and the LGBT community, they don't have to be polar opposites or black and white. They can very much be together.
Yeah, so well said. I mean, there's, religion is a whole nother topic that I really don't want to wander off into too much because we could really, that could take over the whole show. If we get too far off on that topic. But I'll just say very quickly that there are, affirming churches. End of topic. That you know. I mean, it's you can be gay and Christian. End of story. I don't think that's debatable, quite frankly. Last February, you came out publicly. I got to tell you, Troy, I have this belief or opinion, I guess, that LGBT community members have two ages: their physical ages since their time of birth, and their gay age, which, in my mind, starts when they come out. So, you know, I mean, you're not even 1 year old yet in gay age. So, you know,
you haven't even earned your gay card yet.
Well, I told my family less than a year prior to that, but my friends and colleagues and everybody else who knew me, I guess, and who didn't know me, found out in my article that I wrote for the Huffington Post, and I actually feel almost as if I cheated the system a little bit, because LGBTQ individuals on a daily basis have to face the world not knowing what kind of a response they're going to get, whether it's going to their job or talking to their neighbor or their family or whatever it may be. They have to continually come out or explain who they are, when our straight counterparts don't really need to worry about that so much. And so in my coming out article, or my article about my sexuality, I guess I can reference as well, I think I cheated the system where it was over and said and done, and the anxiety about coming out to people or talking about it was really taken away when I did write that article. So I felt very fortunate in being able to do that, and I hope it encourages others to not take the same route, but to know that there are going to be supportive people and supportive individuals on the other side of that big wall of fear.
On that note, you know, we all have our coming out stories, you know, and some of them are more happy than others. Some of them are more tragedy than others. Can you explain to especially our younger listeners who might be struggling with the whole coming out issue? Explain to them, you know, perhaps, you know, how you came to terms with that, and or have you come to terms with that?
Again, I would say it's very individual.
Right.
No one knows when to come out but that individual. And I think that when you feel pressured to do something like that, that is going to affect everything, anywhere from school to work to your family, only you are going to know. And for me, I have accepted it. I continue to see obstacles that do come with that, but they're not obstacles that someone can't find a way around or find a way to overcome and become a better person because of it. And I also have found great strength and great support in coming out and making new relationships with people, and even finding that individuals in my life who may or may not have been distant, those relationships have actually become stronger. So my experience was I read a letter to my mother. I also did a lot of it through email, and a lot of people will say to me, well, that's not very personable, you weren't face-to-face, but there again, just like it's up to the individual on when to tell somebody, I think it's very much up to them on how to tell somebody. And living in North Dakota, I mean, most of my family is so far spread out that email was probably the best way to do it, or over the phone. But for me, it was, for the most part, very accepting, very understanding. There were a few individuals that have taken a long time to get used to, and some are still adjusting. And I'm trying to think, you know, my worst fear when it came to my faith and it came to my sexuality and coming out, I was almost wanting the rejection because I thought that's what I deserved. And my biggest fear was actually the acceptance that I got from the majority of my family. And looking back, I'm so thankful that I did.
Now, I looked at some of your Huffington Post stuff, and that one, from what I saw, was, goodness gracious, the number of comments you had on that coming out article just far outweighed the number of comments you had on the other articles. Was that your most commented article?
Absolutely it was. And I smile about that and I laugh about that and I go, dang it, now what kind of a topic am I going to come up with next that's going to get
Well, in this digitally connected world we live in, you might not have to worry about that too long.
Well, and I look at that now in two different ways. A, I'm looking at it going, wow, I hope it really helped individuals to see maybe some insight that they didn't see before, but at the same time to keep myself in check and go, I don't need to have another article come out like that with all the responses and positive reinforcement because I'm not looking for external gratification anymore. I was there at once, and I'm not there anymore. You know, the past is in the past. We don't live there anymore. The only gratification that I need is with myself. And if the article is good to me, then that's all that really matters.
Well, that's well said right there. But we also have to remember that we some of our listeners are back in before that though. Where you were before you had your coming out, and we need to kind of show them how liberating it can be to come to terms and accept yourself. Because remember, no one else can love you and accept you until you accept yourself. So do you have any comments on that for the folks out there that haven't really come to terms with that yet?
Well, I think that even the smallest things, especially with those that are younger than myself and who are very much exposed to the technology, the technological age, I guess, is that even the minor things, say on my Facebook page, I would always question what kind of music I could listen to or what posts I could put on there. When I finally came out, I didn't have to worry about that anymore. Those little pieces of anxiety, such as like that with my Facebook page, the little pieces of anxiety, they really add up in your life, and you realize how much weight that is holding you down. And you don't realize until you come out or you're honest not only with others, but most importantly with yourself, how much more free and how much, I guess, liberating your life can be after that happens. And I guess in terms of advice, be honest, but then I think when it comes to telling the individuals around you, go to those individuals that you know are going to be supportive or that you feel would most be open and supportive. Because you need that support structure and you need someone to fall back on if other individuals in your life aren't so supportive. It's a very vulnerable time in your life, but I think the benefits outweigh the negatives in most situations. So I don't know. Do either of you have any suggestions for coming out in today's day and age? I think the media and a lot of celebrities and different avenues have made it much more acceptable, in schools and growing up to be who you are. So I think we're making great progress and great strides that way. But there are always those individuals that believe they're the only one that feels this way.
Well, and unfortunately, and Tom and I did a little piece on this a couple of weeks ago about kids being bullied, and for even if it was a perception that they might be gay, and in schools it's hard because kids don't really have there's all these things on TV and the internet and all that sort of thing, but they don't have that person, that one person that they can feel like they can talk to, And so we try to make that a point of reference that it's okay to be you, and it's okay to come out of the closet, and sometimes it's easier said than done, even for adults. I mean, adults have a hard time coming to terms with it too. I mean, I know a guy who was 56 years old before he came out, So it's not just young people. Old people have these issues as well.
Absolutely, and you both know as well as I do that the suicide rates among LGBTQ youth are far more higher. In fact, I heard it was 3 to 6 times higher than their straight counterparts. But I think one of the most important things that we really need to focus on is that even if you're perceived to be gay, the teasing is much higher. And I think in that sense, education, awareness, and not confrontation or stigma, I think that's what we need. We need education so that it's not a stigma anymore to be gay. It's just, oh, you happen to be gay. Well, that's the way some people are. And the same with coming out. I look forward to a day when it's I'm not coming out of the closet. I can be who I am and be with somebody, and they go, oh, you like someone, or you're in love with someone, and it's not coming out. That's just my significant other.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you one of your Huffington Post articles, you said, and this kind of sums this up, kind of, because I think maybe people need to reflect and maybe adjust. You said, I realized I didn't need to try to be, quote, unquote, perfect, that being, quote, unquote, perfect wasn't being authentic, and that path always leads to self-destruction.
Yep, absolutely. I think that when you try very hard to, I saw another quote, and hey, I'll take it for the show that it was mine, but it's not, that we really compare our personal life to everybody else's highlight reel. And when we do that, we strive to something that's unattainable, and it's not going to happen. And so when we're not honest with ourselves, and when we don't accept ourselves, it becomes very hard to be able to relate and to, I guess, be happy, be authentic, and be who we are when we're not comfortable with what lies inside.
Exactly. Here's another good clip that I got from some of your. I got a lot of these clips. I think I sent you most of them, but I'm going to jump because we only got 28 minutes left in the show, so I'm trying to hit the highlights here. You put in one of your postings, you said, the unhealthy set of coping skills and behaviors in some ways led to self-brainwashing, allowing me to feel that I deserve punishment because of my failures to tackle the world alone, deal with my emotions, and change my sexuality. I didn't deserve anything better, to be happy or to feel good about myself. I think that speaks volumes.
Yes. How does that make you feel now that you've gone through what you've gone through, and hearing that sort of thing again?
When I do listen to that was written, I believe, after I came out, if I remember correctly, and even listening to it right now, it brings back, of course, memories. It brings back feelings that I did have while I was not honest with myself or anybody else. And it just reinforces when I talk about coping skills and behaviors being secretive, or using my eating disorder behaviors to deal with life, or telling myself I wasn't good enough, and really believing when I was teased and bullied when I was younger that they were right. And that I was a failure, et cetera, et cetera. And it makes me feel very sad, because I know whether you're LGBTQ, whether you identify as that or not, I think youth in general today often feel that. I think they very much feel that because, as I said before, we have a standard in society, and it's either you're great, grand, and wonderful, or you're nothing. And when I look at that, if you can't face the world alone, then you're deemed a failure. And so it makes me very sad, because I know a lot of people are probably feeling or thinking the same thing.
Yeah, and my biggest point about that whole thing is there's no need for anyone to face the world alone. It's just...
No, that's what recovery and support is all about. It's finding that support structure that's going to be there with you through the good times and the bad. And everyone's support structure is different, but that doesn't mean one is more important than the other.
That's
Or
awesome.
that one is more valuable than the other, because I think that's another thing that some people struggle with is they don't know what support group is right for them, or what doctor is right for them, or what it, so you have to go through these issues one at a time, and coming out and dealing with the whole gay issue is certainly part of that.
Yes, and for a lot of people, the recovery process does allow them time to reflect on their life and say, hey, this individual, this place where I'm living, this job, is really contributing to what's keeping me in my illness, and I really need to make the change that's going to be better for me. And I think one of the things that was mentioned earlier about about people that have gone through something to really realize how important life is, or how meaningful you are to this life. I think one thing that I can definitely say about almost every individual that happens to identify as LGBTQ is that we've all typically gone through a very difficult time in our lives when we felt as if we were the only one, when we were different from everybody. Most of us have had the coming out process. We've had good reaction. We've had bad reaction. And I found that the majority of us come out on the other side having gone through something very, very traumatic, and yet are the most kind, accepting, and intelligent, well-thought individuals, because we have faced the world, quote-unquote, alone in some instances. And so I find that the one thing that we really do have to offer is we really have a great perspective on where we have been and where we can be, and we can really offer that to other people.
Yeah, that's kind of like, and I often play it on the station, the famous quote from Harvey Milk about coming out. And I always love the part towards the end of it where he says, and after you do, you will feel so much better. Because that's so true.
That is very true. And bless Harvey Milk for saying that,
Yes.
It's like the weight of the shoulder, is lifted off your shoulders. The weight of the world. You don't feel that so much that pressure that's been building up for eons, is gone.
Absolutely.
Once you let go of it, it's you're holding on to it. You're the one that needs to let go of it. That's an awesome thing. I find it interesting that you went through this 6 months of residential treatment and never once spoke about your sexual orientation. You didn't come out till after the treatment and everything. So you were still dealing with being in the closet after you basically not resolved, but were headed towards resolution to your eating disorder and exercise obsession.
Yes, that's very true. I think I was very fortunate. I learned coping skills while I was in residential treatment that did help me when I came home to adjust to regular life again. But I find it interesting that I'm still here, even though I think that was one of the bigger contributors. That was something that I was struggling with for a very, very long time. But in regards to the treatment, I really think that set me up to be able to deal with what I did deal with after I came home. Like you said, I finished treatment when I was, I believe, 23, and didn't admit to my family almost a year later. So I went through not only Christian counseling and traditional counseling, but it took me almost a year after that to finally come forward, and it was a long process. I'm not going to lie about it, but it's definitely been a very positive, yet I don't know how to really term it. It's been a positive experience, and it's been a very enlightening experience, and in a way to grow. I think it's something that probably could have or should have been addressed many, many years ago, and who knows if I would have gone down the same path. But I think the timing, things happen for a reason, and that was when it was supposed to happen for me.
Well, I think it's so. In a way, not only did this treatment center help you with the eating disorder and the weightlifting disorder, or exercise disorder, I should say, but it also basically helped you with dealing with your sexual orientation.
Ultimately, yes, it did, because they really helped me to realize that feeling, listening to myself and saying that, okay, well, I need to take some time for me, and feeling and being okay with taking care of myself, because like you, I think was mentioned before, we have to be stoic and we have to do everything on our own. We have to face the world alone, or supposedly we are, and I was under the assumption that taking care of myself, or listening and speaking up for myself, was a bad thing. And so this facility absolutely pointed out that it's okay to take a time out for you. Let others hear that, let you be able to speak your mind and say, hey, this isn't working for me. I don't know about you, but I'm not going to go through with this just because everybody else thinks I should. It really gave me that inner voice, and I think that inner voice really helped me with not only the coming out process, but then to deal with what happened after that.
Yeah, I mean, because when you're in, like you said, you used the word authentic earlier. That you weren't being authentic, and that path always leads to self-destruction. I mean, I'm a little more, I don't use the big 50-cent words. I mean, you're living a lie. Let's put it down to brass tacks here. If you can't live and be healthy if you're living a lie, and call it authentic, call it a lie, call it what you will, but you got to be true to yourself, and in turn true to others. Otherwise, it is going to lead to self-destruction in one way, shape, or form. It might not lead to the ultimate self-destruction in all cases, but it surely can.
Well,
I
would
think
just...
that,
Go ahead. Please.
I was just going to say most people simply exist and they don't live, and I think that goes perfectly with if you're living a lie, you're perhaps just existing and you're not living as we're supposed to, and why we're here.
Excellent.
Well, I would just add to that we're all here for a purpose, and some of us have trouble finding out what that purpose is, and whether it's coming out as gay, or perhaps running for public office, or whatever it is. We're all here for a purpose, and it's good because it gives us a chance to learn that we are all part of this human family on this planet, and it's time to treat each other with the respect that we would want to be treated with, and we can draw the line in the sand and say we're gay or straight or black or green or whatever, but in the end we are all one human family, and some of us need to pay more attention to that, I think.
Absolutely. I completely 150% agree with that. I've often said that I don't know if I really I don't know if I want to say embrace or enjoy the word community when it comes to perhaps the LGBTQ community, or the African American community, or this community or that community, because ultimately, as you said, we're all human beings, and whether we struggle with an eating disorder or alcoholism or cancer or whatever it may be, we're all hurt, and I think we can all come together as human beings to support one another to get through it. And so I think that's the ultimate goal that we all probably really want, but it's getting there that's going to be the difficult part.
Yeah, because we get back to that black and white thing. Here's a little quote out of one of your articles I snatched up that really jumped out at me also. You said, "I'm here for a reason. A heart attack and organ failure resulting from an eating disorder, partly fueled by internalized homophobia, nearly killed me twice. Being alive is God's way of saying He isn't finished with me yet. I want to help find the gray in society where black and white dominate. Life isn't black and white, and the experiences we endure help shape who we become." Awesome, awesome statement.
So, Troy, my next question for you: what are your future plans? What are you thinking about doing from this point forward?
I pray to make it through December when my thesis is done. I'm praying that I have my hair left in my head, that I haven't pulled it all out, and that it doesn't turn gray by that point. But beyond graduation, I really hope to become an educational specialist for whether it's the healthcare system or an organization or an eating disorder facility or a program dealing specifically with community outreach, maybe LGBTQ individuals and those types of organizations, but specifically an educational specialist dealing with eating disorders that reaches out to the community and provides resources for families and friends and everyone alike to get the help that they not only need but they deserve.
Which I got to ask, because I know I've been an LGBT activist for some time here on the radio thing, doing my radio thing, and that's my way of reaching out and doing exactly what you want to do, is to reach out and help our human family. Have you ever had anyone contact you in any way, shape, or form saying, "Troy, you changed my life. Thank you"?
Wow. I've had a few people mention that they've perhaps gone in a different direction, but the one thing that does stand out in my mind, and it happened right after I did come home. It actually wasn't after it was before I had come out, but I went to the community that I had taught while I went on the Dr. Phil show and did all that. I had my first year of teaching, and I went back to that community to do an educational presentation to them on what exactly happened and all that followed. And a young girl came up to me. She was a seventh grader at the time, and she came up to me, and I never really knew how to take the title of Mr. Roness. It was always just a different thing for me. So when she came up to me, she went, "Mr. Roness," she gave me a tug on my shirt, and she said, and she was one of the quietest girls that I had in class. And she always sat near the back, didn't say anything, and she walked up to me, and she just pulled on my shirt, and she just said, "I just want to say that you're my hero," and she ran away.
Oh.
And,
wow.
I kind of looked to the side a little bit because she darted off so much, but I sat there going, I don't even have the words to describe what hero means, how in the world I can be one, but at the same time, it was something that I will absolutely never forget, and I just hope that everybody on Earth has an opportunity to have a moment like that, because, as I said before, it's something I will definitely never forget.
Yeah, that's why I asked the question, because I figured you've had that moment, because I personally have had it on more than one occasion, knock on wood. I think it's an awesome feeling, and at times when I'm thinking about tossing in the towel, that gives me the strength to kind of keep plugging away.
It's one of those faith in humanity moments, I think, because I too have had a few people come up to me and say, "I really love what you're doing on the radio," and and thanks so much, and then there was another one that says, "I never thought about your issues that way, and I think I'm going to change the way I think and I act," and I think those are wonderful, wonderful moments. And as an activist, it's good to hear that every now and then, because sometimes you get to the point where you feel like you're saying the same thing over and over and over and over and over, and you just hope that it's getting through, and you just never know for sure that it is. But every now and then you have one of those moments, and that makes it all worthwhile.
Absolutely, and I think even though we have those moments where, and I share your frustration or, I guess, feeling that you say something over and over and over again, but I've had many moments in my life where I've tried to think about something, and one person will say it a certain way, and the light bulb goes off. And so in each of those moments where we say something repeatedly or we feel like we do, we just hope that that's a light bulb moment for somebody else.
Troy, we have a question from one of our listeners in the chat room. He asked Troy, talking about heroes, who would you consider your hero or person that you get the most inspiration from?
Oh, wow.
Good question.
Well, I would like to just throw it out there that maybe it's the two radio hosts right now. I'm not quite sure, but now let me think here. That is such a huge question. I honestly can't narrow it down to just one individual or a couple. If anything, of course, my faith is something that I follow very much, but I love quotes. I have them hanging all over my house. I have them all on my Facebook page and everything. And so I would have to say that it's authors like that give us quotes and inspiration to keep us going every day. And of course, those individuals that have fought through something, and it doesn't necessarily have to be something that I've struggled with, but individuals that have come to the other side of where they were and they've made a difference. And I think those are the individuals that I really look up to, because it's wonderful to see something that was very bad turn into something very, very positive.
Awesome.
Great question.
Yeah, good question there, guest number one. How'd you get guest number one? Aren't you special? So Troy, we're like about 8 minutes out from our scheduled departure time here, and I always like to give guests the podium to say what they want to say, and it's all yours. Just whatever you want to say.
Well, first of all, I would like to say thank you to both of you for allowing me to be on this evening. It is an incredible experience, and I hope that someone listening out there, the light bulb may go off for them or for someone in their life that they know, and that they can really take the steps that they need to address the issues in their life. And maybe it's just passing the word on or looking up a website or talking to somebody. And I just really hope that this opens the eyes that eating disorders don't discriminate. They don't affect one gender, one race, one ethnicity, or one faith. It affects everybody. And it's something that not only needs to be addressed, but those individuals really deserve the help that is out there for them. And if they need any information, please try and contact me. I don't know if you're going to put my contact information out there, but I would be more than happy to refer you to where you need to go, or find me on Facebook and ask me a question. That's completely fine, but I appreciate the time, and I hope that someone out there benefits from the discussion this evening.
Well, I know we got your Twitter. Twitter, of course, he's at Troy Roness, or twitter.com/Troy Roness. It's all stuck together like it's one word. What other contact information did you want to share with them?
Just, like I said, it's pretty much the same thing with Facebook. Very boring. I think I'm the only Troy Roness in the United States, so it shouldn't be hard to find me. And my, email, if you want to email questions to me, it's troy.roness@gmail.com. So I look forward to helping you in any way that I can.
Awesome.
And I would assume that the Facebook is facebook.com/Troy Roness. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe so. And like I said, if you just type in my name, I should pop up fairly quickly. So.
Yeah, you can Google him. He's all over the place.
And of course, to our listeners, if you go ahead and email us here at Kelly at queerpublicradio.com or Tom at queerpublicradio.com, we'll be happy to pass on the information to you via that route as well.
Yeah, I can always forward it to him or whatever. That's not a problem. More than happy to do that. But, Troy, I just think you're awesome. I think what you're doing is awesome. I think we need more people like you in the world that need to speak out and speak up and be heard. It's to make a difference, you know, because it's in your own way. It's a vast showing of love. It really is to reach out to others and help where you can and how you can and what you can. And this is your thing. This is what you've been through, and this is probably where you can do the most good. So I think you found your calling, man.
Well, and I would just like to add to that, if I may. I highly respect your courage to come out in such a public fashion, and I want to also say thank you for spending some time with us here because I think your issues are very, very important and certainly worth discussing, especially when it comes to GLBTQ members.
Thank you very much, and I'll just reiterate what I said earlier. It is about me. I appreciate the great comments that you both have given me, and it's individuals such as yourselves that help keep the voice alive and hoping to allow other individuals to find theirs and to keep people from going down the road that they may not have to. And so this is a great avenue. This is why I'm here, and this is one of the opportunities that the message keeps going. And so I appreciate the time and the discussion here tonight.
Oh, thanks, Troy. Thanks, and you know what? Our audience wants to thank you, too. Get back. Well, I had to hold him back.
Have to beat him off with a stick there.
Yeah.
And with that, folks, I'd like to take this time to thank each and every one of you, our listeners out there, for taking the time and spending some time with us here on Queer Public Radio. And I want to remind you that we are all one human family, and please remember to treat your brothers and sisters with the love and respect that you are due. Mahalo.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you so much, Troy, for spending time with us. All the best to you and yours, and have a great one.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
See y'all next time.
I love you, and you, and you. Oh, and you too. And don't forget him. I love her, and him, and her, and him, and him, and her. I love you all.
Adios. Have a nice trip. Bon voyage. Farewell to thee.
That's all, folks.
We'll leave the light on for you.